Chapter 1. The Crimson Invitation. The late autumn of 1938 draped London in a mist that clung to the cobblestones like a reluctant curtain, unwilling to rise before the day's performance. In the cosy flat at Whitehaven Mansions, Hercule Poirot sat by the fire, his small, meticulous hands arranging a stack of correspondence with the precision of a conductor. I, Captain Arthur Hastings, lounged in an armchair opposite, nursing a cup of tea and marvelling at my friend's ability to find order in the chaos of daily life. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes glinting with that familiar spark of curiosity, "you have not remarked upon the elegance of this invitation." He held aloft a card, its edges gilded, its surface embossed with crimson lettering that shimmered in the firelight. "It is not merely an invitation, Hastings, but a summons to the theatre of life, and perhaps of intrigue." I took the card, its weight surprising me. It announced the premiere of The Crimson Veil, a new play at the Ruby Theatre, hosted by Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a name synonymous with London's theatrical elite. The invitation, addressed to both Poirot and myself, promised an evening of drama and spectacle. "Rather grand, isn't it?" I said, passing it back. "Why us, Poirot?" "We're hardly theatre critics." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sure sign of amusement. "Sir Reginald, he is a man of discernment. He knows that Hercule Poirot does not attend merely to applaud but to observe. And where there is a gathering of such personalities, there is always the possibility of something more than a play." I chuckled, accustomed to Poirot's penchant for seeing mysteries where others saw only curtains and footlights. Yet, I confess, the prospect of an evening at the Ruby Theatre, with its fabled crimson velvet curtains and whispered legends of past scandals, stirred my own curiosity. We accepted, of course, and 2 evenings later found ourselves in a taxi rattling toward Covent Garden. The Ruby Theatre stood like a jewel in the heart of London, its facade a blend of neoclassical columns and Art Deco flourishes. Gaslights flickered, casting a warm glow on the crowd of fur-clad ladies and top-hatted gentlemen streaming through the arched entrance. Inside, the foyer was a symphony of opulence. Chandeliers dripped crystal, marble floors gleamed, and the air carried the scent of polished wood and expensive perfume. A grand staircase, flanked by ruby-red banisters, led to the auditorium, where the famous curtains awaited. As we handed our coats to an attendant, Poirot's eyes darted about, cataloguing details I scarcely noticed. "Observe, Hastings," he murmured, gesturing toward a group near the champagne table. "The actors, they mingle, but their smiles are as rehearsed as their lines." I followed his gaze. Clara Beaumont, the star of The Crimson Veil, held court in a sapphire gown, her laughter bright, but her eyes cold. Beside her stood Victor, Langston, her leading man, whose charm seemed strained as he glanced at Clara. The stage manager, Edith Crane, a stern woman with a clipboard, hovered nearby, her lips pursed as if guarding a secret. And then there was Evelyn Marsh, the playwright, a shadowy figure in black who stood apart, scribbling in a notebook with feverish intensity. "Quite a cast," I remarked. "Do you know them, Poirot?" "Only by reputation," he replied, adjusting his bow tie. "But reputations, they are like costumes, worn to conceal as much as to reveal." Before I could press him further, Sir Reginald Hawthorne approached, a tall man with silver hair and a smile that seemed to belong on a stage. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, what an honour!" His voice boomed, drawing eyes. "The Ruby Theatre welcomes you. Tonight, The Crimson Veil will astonish London." Poirot inclined his head. "Monsieur, your theatre is a marvel. But tell me, what is the inspiration for this play?" Its title, it suggests mystery. Sir Reginald's smile faltered, just for a moment. Evelyn Marsh's creation, you know. She's a genius, though a touch eccentric. Says it's based on truth, but don't all playwrights claim that? He laughed too loudly and excused himself to greet a duchess. Eccentric, he says, Poirot mused. And yet I sense unease. Hastings, keep your eyes open. The little grey cells, they are already at work. The reception buzzed with chatter, but I noticed undercurrents of tension. Clara whispered sharply to Victor, who turned away with a scowl. Edith Crane intercepted a waiter carrying a tray of glasses, her voice low and urgent, and Evelyn Marsh, ever aloof, slipped a folded note under a door marked private before vanishing into the crowd. I pointed this out to Poirot, who nodded thoughtfully. A note, Hastings, a small thing, but in a theatre, nothing is without meaning. We must see where this door leads. We made our way to the door, discreetly tucked behind a velvet drape. It was locked, but Poirot's nimble fingers brushed the frame, revealing a faint scratch, as if someone had forced it recently. Curious, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This is no ordinary evening, mon ami. The bell rang, signalling the start of the performance. We took our seats in a private box, courtesy of Sir Reginald, overlooking the stage. The auditorium dimmed, and the ruby curtains parted with a whisper, revealing a set draped in shadows. The play began, its dialogue sharp and laden with hints of betrayal. Clara Beaumont's performance was magnetic, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that her every gesture was watched, not just by the audience, but by someone with darker intent. Poirot leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the stage. Hastings, he said softly, this theatre, it is a stage not only for art but for truth, and truth, it will emerge before the curtain falls. As the first act reached its climax, a chill ran through me. The Ruby Theatre, with its grandeur and secrets, felt alive, as if it, too, were a player in the drama unfolding. Little did I know that before the night was over, the stage would be stained not with theatrical blood, but with the real thing. Chapter 2. The Spotlight Falls. The Ruby Theatre's auditorium, moments ago a cathedral of art and anticipation, had transformed into a cauldron of chaos. The second act of The Crimson Veil had reached its crescendo when Clara Beaumont, radiant in her role as the betrayed heroine, clutched her throat, staggered, and collapsed centre stage. The audience gasped, then applauded, mistaking her fall for a dramatic flourish. I, Captain Hastings, seated beside Hercule Poirot in our private box, felt a prickle of unease. Clara's collapse was too real, her eyes too wide with terror. Poirot, his posture rigid, leaned forward, his moustache quivering like a seismograph sensing disaster. Mon Dieu, Hastings, he whispered, this is no performance. It is murder. The words struck me like a thunderclap. Before I could respond, Poirot was on his feet, moving with a speed that belied his fastidious demeanour. Come, Hastings, we must act swiftly. He descended the stairs to the auditorium, and I followed, my heart pounding as the audience's applause faltered into murmurs of confusion. On stage, the other actors stood frozen, their painted faces pale beneath the grease paint. Victor Langston, Clara's leading man, knelt beside her, his hands hovering uselessly. "Clara, speak to me!" he cried, his voice cracking. The stage manager, Edith Crane, pushed through the curtains, her clipboard clattering to the floor as she saw Clara's lifeless form. The ruby curtains, half drawn, swayed like a blood-red shroud. Poirot reached the stage in a few purposeful strides, his black patent shoes clicking on the polished boards. "Monsieur Langston, step back if you please," he commanded, his voice calm but unyielding. "And you, Madam Crane, ensure no one leaves this theatre." "Hastings, assist her, quickly!" I nodded, still dazed, and followed Edith to the wings, where she barked orders to the stagehands to secure the exits. The audience, now sensing the gravity of the situation, buzzed with panic. Sir Reginald Hawthorne appeared, his silver hair dishevelled, shouting for calm as he climbed onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, a medical emergency! Please remain seated!" Poirot knelt beside Clara, his gloved hands moving with surgical precision. Her sapphire gown was crumpled, her face frozen in a grimace of pain. I caught a glimpse of her eyes, glassy and unseeing, and felt a chill. Poirot's fingers brushed her lips, then paused at her neck. "Cyanide," he murmured, sniffing delicately. "The faint scent of almonds, Hastings, a poison, swift and merciless." "Cyanide?" I echoed, horrified. "But how? She was performing, Poirot. No one approached her." Poirot's eyes narrowed, scanning the stage. "The how? It is always in the details. Observe, mon ami." He pointed to Clara's costume, where a ruby hairpin, prominent in the first act, was conspicuously absent. "This pin, it was part of her costume, no? Where is it now?" I glanced around, but the stage was a clutter of props. A goblet, a velvet cloak, a candelabra, none revealing the missing pin. Poirot's gaze shifted to the goblet, which Clara had sipped from during the scene. He lifted it carefully, sniffing its rim. "No almonds here," he said, frowning. "The poison, it was not in the drink, but how then?" Edith Crane returned, her face ashen. "The exits are secured, Monsieur Poirot. The police are on their way, but the crowd's restless." Her eyes darted to Clara, and I noticed her hands trembling. Who could do this? She was difficult, but this? Difficult? Poirot's tone was sharp, like a blade slicing through pretense. "Madame, you will explain this difficult later. For now, tell me, who prepared Mademoiselle Beaumont's costume?" Edith hesitated. "Agnes, our seamstress, but she's worked here for years. She'd have no reason is ever certain until it is certain," Poirot interrupted. "And you, Monsieur Langston," he turned to Victor, who stood clutching a prop sword. "You were closest to Mademoiselle Beaumont. Did you see anything unusual?" Victor's handsome face twisted, his eyes red. "Nothing. She was fine, laughing during the interval. Then this." His voice broke, and I wondered if his grief was genuine or an actor's artifice. Poirot stood, dusting his knees with a handkerchief. "Hastings, fetch the understudy, Mademoiselle Harper. She must know something of Clara's movements." I hurried backstage, navigating a labyrinth of ropes and flats, and found Lily Harper in the dressing room, still in her costume as Clara's understudy. Her eyes were wide, but there was a flicker of something, ambition perhaps, beneath her shock. "Monsieur Poirot needs you," I said. Lily nodded, following me back to the stage, where Poirot was examining the floorboards. He rose as we approached, his gaze piercing. "Mademoiselle Harper," he said, "you were to replace Mademoiselle Beaumont if needed, oui? Did you handle her costume or props tonight?" Lily's cheeks flushed. "No, Monsieur Poirot. I was in the wings watching. Clara was particular about her things." Her voice held a trace of resentment, and I made a mental note. Poirot, I knew, had already catalogued it. The police arrived, led by Inspector Japp, a familiar face whose gruff demeanour softened at the sight of Poirot. "You again, Poirot?" he said, half exasperated, half relieved. "What's this about cyanide?" "A murder, Inspector," Poirot replied, gesturing to Clara, "and one most cleverly executed. The poison was administered during the performance, but the method, it eludes me for now." Japp barked orders to his men, who began cordoning off the stage. Poirot, undeterred, continued his inspection, pausing at a trapdoor beneath the stage. "Hastings, look here," he said, pointing to a faint smudge of grease paint on the handle. "Someone used this recently, perhaps to escape unnoticed." I shivered, imagining the killer slipping through the theatre's underbelly. "But who, Poirot? And why Clara?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The why? It is always the heart of the matter. Clara Beaumont, she was a star, but stars cast shadows. Jealousy, revenge, ambition, these are the threads we must unravel." As the police began questioning the actors, Poirot drew me aside. "Hastings, we must learn more of this theatre, its people, its secrets. The ruby curtain hides more than a stage. It conceals a murderer." He glanced at the audience, now filing out under police supervision, and I followed his gaze to Evelyn Marsh, the playwright, lingering near the exit, her notebook clutched tightly. "Evelyn Marsh," I said. "That note she slipped under the door, could it be connected?" Poirot nodded. "Perhaps, mon ami. The little grey cells, they are awake. This murder, it is a performance, and we shall not applaud until the final act." The ruby curtains swayed gently, as if whispering secrets of their own. Clara Beaumont lay still, her spotlight extinguished, and I knew that Poirot's quest for truth had only just begun. Chapter 3. Shadows on the Stage. The Ruby Theatre, stripped of its audience and bathed in the dim glow of work-lights, seemed a different beast altogether. Where once there had been glamour and applause, now there was an eerie stillness, broken only by the creak of floorboards and the distant murmur of Inspector Japp's men cataloguing the scene. I, Captain Hastings, stood in the wings. My nerves still jangled from the sight of Clara Beaumont's lifeless form. Hercule Poirot, however, was in his element, his small, precise figure moving through the backstage chaos with the focus of a bloodhound. "Hastings," he called softly, beckoning me to a narrow corridor lined with ropes and pulleys. "The stage, it is the heart of the theatre, but the backstage, c'est le cerveau, the brain. Here, secrets are kept, and truths are hidden." I nodded, though I confess the labyrinth of props, costumes, and shadowy corners unnerved me. The air smelled of sawdust, grease paint, and something sharper. Fear, perhaps. Poirot's eyes, bright and unyielding, scanned every detail. A coil of rope, a discarded feather boa, a half-open trunk spilling velvet. "We must speak with those who know this world best," he said. "The staff, the stage hands, they see what the audience does not." We began with Edith Crane, the stage manager, who stood near a cluttered prop table, her stern face etched with fatigue. Her clipboard, now abandoned, lay beside a chipped teacup, a stark contrast to the elegance of the auditorium. "Madame Crane," Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet. "You knew Mademoiselle Beaumont well, oui? Tell me of her disposition." Edith's lips tightened. "Clara was a star, Monsieur Poirot, but stars burn those too close. She was vain, demanding, insulted the crew, snapped at actors. Only yesterday she reduced poor Agnès, our seamstress, to tears over a hemline." Her tone was bitter, and I wondered if it masked deeper resentment. Poirot's moustache twitched. "And these insults, they were frequent?" "Daily," Edith replied, then hesitated. "But she was brilliant on stage. You couldn't take your eyes off her. That's why Sir Reginald kept her, despite the complaints." "Complaints?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "From whom, precisely?" Edith glanced away, fussing with a prop candelabra. "Victor Langston, for one. They were close once, but lately, they argued. And Lily Harper, the understudy, she envied Clara's spotlight. Even Evelyn Marsh, the playwright, clashed with her over script changes. I made a mental note of these names, sensing the web of motives Poirot was already untangling. He moved to a rack of costumes, his gloved fingers brushing a sequined gown. "And this hairpin," he said almost to himself. "The ruby one Mademoiselle Beaumont wore." It was part of her costume, no? Who handled it last? Edith frowned. Agnes would know. She fitted Clara's costume before the show, but Clara was particular, wouldn't let anyone touch her things once she was dressed. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Merci, madame. We shall speak again." As Edith returned to her duties, I followed Poirot to a small desk piled with scripts. He lifted one, its pages dog-eared, and paused. A single page, torn at the edge, lay beneath, its text underlined in red ink. "Betray me, and you shall pay in blood." "Good Lord, Poirot," I said, peering over his shoulder. "That's from the play, isn't it?" "But why tear it out?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A message, perhaps, or a mistake. But in murder, Hastings, there are no accidents. This page, it was not meant to be seen." He slipped it into his pocket, a gesture so swift I barely caught ascertain the true nature of the crime with this new clue. The chapter delves into the backstage world, revealing tensions and rivalries among the troupe. A nervous stagehand, young Tommy Wells, catches Poirot's attention next. I found him in a cluttered corner, polishing a brass lamp, his hands trembling. "Monsieur Wells," Poirot said, his voice gentle but probing. "You were backstage during the performance. Did you see Mademoiselle Beaumont before she took the stage?" Tommy, barely 20, wiped sweat from his brow. "Aye, sir. She was in her dressing room, then out here, arguing with someone. Couldn't hear much, but she was angry, said something about not letting it go." "With whom did she argue?" Poirot pressed. Tommy shrugged, his eyes darting nervously. "Couldn't see, sir. It was dark and I was up in the flies, adjusting the lights. But her voice, sharp, like she was proper cross." Poirot exchanged a glance with me, and I knew his mind was racing. An argument, a torn script page, a missing hairpin, these were the threads of his tapestry, and he was already weaving them together. "Merci, Monsieur Wells," he said. "You have been most helpful." As we moved deeper into the backstage maze, the atmosphere grew oppressive. Narrow passages twisted past crates and pulleys, lit only by flickering bulbs. A trapdoor, barely visible in the floor, caught Poirot's eye. He crouched, examining the smudge of grease paint noted earlier. "This trapdoor, Hastings," he said, "it leads to the understage. A perfect route for one who wishes to move unseen." I shivered, picturing a shadowy figure slipping through the theatre's bowels. "You think the killer used it?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, standing. "But the killer, they are clever. The cyanide, it was not in the goblet, nor in her makeup, I think. The method, it is subtle, personal. We must learn more of Clara's enemies." We passed a bulletin board plastered with schedules and notes, one scrawled in hasty ink. "CB to meet RH at 11. I pointed it out, and Poirot's brow furrowed. RH, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, perhaps? A late-night meeting, and now a murder. The coincidence, it is not to my liking. The theatre's shadows seemed to deepen, the creak of ropes overhead like whispers of conspiracy. Clara Beaumont's reputation as a tempestuous star had left a trail of enemies, and Poirot's little grey cells were already sorting them. Victor, with his wounded pride. Lily, hungry for the spotlight. Edith, nursing quiet grudges. Even Evelyn Marsh, whose cryptic note lingered in my mind. As we emerged into the auditorium, the ruby curtains loomed, their crimson folds hiding secrets yet to be unveiled. Poirot paused, his gaze distant. "This theatre, Hastings, it is a stage for more than plays. The drama of human nature, jealousy, betrayal, it plays out in the dark, and we, mon ami, shall light the truth." I nodded, my heart heavy with the weight of the task. The Ruby Theatre was no longer a place of art, but a battlefield where Poirot's genius would face its next challenge. Chapter 4. The Playwright's Secret. The Ruby Theatre, even in the pale light of morning, retained an air of mystery, its crimson curtains drawn tight as if guarding the secrets of the night before. I, Captain Hastings, stood in the foyer, still shaken by the image of Clara Beaumont's lifeless form, while Hercule Poirot, ever the maestro of deduction, seemed invigorated by the challenge. His eyes, bright as polished jet, scanned the ornate surroundings with a hunger for truth. "Hastings," he said, adjusting his impeccable tie, "we must seek the mind behind the crimson veil. Mademoiselle Evelyn Marsh, the playwright, she holds a key to this puzzle. Her note slipped under the door. Suspenseful, a thread we must follow." I nodded, recalling Evelyn's shadowy figure at the premiere, her notebook clutched like a talisman. We found her in a small office tucked behind the auditorium, its walls lined with playbills and faded photographs. Evelyn sat at a cluttered desk, her dark hair pulled back severely, her pen scratching furiously across a page. She looked up as we entered, her eyes wary, like those of a deer sensing a hunter. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low and measured, "I expected you would come. You have a reputation for curiosity." Poirot inclined his head, a gesture both courteous and commanding. "Mademoiselle Marsh, your play, The Crimson Veil, it is most intriguing. Sir Reginald tells me it is inspired by truth. What truth, precisely, inspired such a tale of betrayal and death?" Evelyn's pen paused, her fingers tightening around it. "All plays are inspired by life, Monsieur Poirot. Love, loss, ambition, these are universal. But specifics? I weave shadows, not confessions." Her smile was thin, evasive, and I sensed Poirot's mind cataloguing her every word. "Shadows, perhaps," Poirot replied, his tone deceptively mild, "but shadows cast by real events, no? The line in your script, 'Betray me, and you shall pay in blood,' it was underlined, torn from its page. A coincidence or a message?" Evelyn's composure flickered, her eyes darting to her notebook. "Actors mark their scripts," she said quickly. "Clara was passionate about her role. Perhaps she underlined it." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his moustache twitching, "but passion, it does not tear pages or poison stars. Tell me, mademoiselle, what did you see before the performance? You were in the foyer, slipping a note under a door marked private. To whom was it addressed?" Evelyn's cheeks paled, but she met his gaze. "A personal matter, Monsieur Poirot. Nothing to do with Clara's death." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "In a murder, mademoiselle, everything is of consequence until it is not. We shall see." He turned to me, his voice low. "Hastings, the archives of this theatre, they may hold the history Mademoiselle Marsh prefers to veil. Let us explore." We left Evelyn, her pen resuming its frantic dance, and made our way to the theatre's basement, where the archives were housed. The air grew musty, the stairs creaking underfoot as we descended into a dimly lit room filled with filing cabinets and dusty boxes. The Ruby Theatre, I learned, had been founded 50 years prior by Sir Reginald's father, Lord Percival Hawthorne, and its history was one of triumphs and scandals. Poirot, with his usual precision, sifted through a box labelled 1890 to 1900. He unearthed a photograph of a young Lord Percival with a woman in a ruby gown, her face strikingly similar to Clara's. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, A resemblance, perhaps, or a coincidence of style, but in the theatre, nothing is mere chance. I rummaged through another box, my fingers brushing a leather-bound ledger. Tucked inside was a yellowed letter, its ink faded but legible. It read, "Percival, your refusal to honour our agreement threatens ruin. The Ruby Theatre will not stand if you betray me. E.C." The initials caught my breath. Poirot, look at this. Could E.C. be related to Edith Crane? Poirot's eyes gleamed as he took the letter. Or another Hastings. The past it echoes in the present. This letter speaks of betrayal and ruin, motives that linger like dust in these archives. He slipped the letter into his pocket, beside the torn script page from the previous night. As we continued our search, I noticed a velvet curtain draped over a corner. Its crimson hue a miniature of the stage's grand curtains. Poirot pulled it aside, revealing a small alcove with a wooden stool and a pile of old costumes. Among them lay a monogrammed handkerchief, its delicate linen embroidered with the initials L.H. in gold thread. "L.H.?" I said, puzzled. "Lily Harper, the understudy." Poirot examined the handkerchief, sniffing it delicately. No scent of cyanide, but its presence here, in this hidden place, it is significant. Why would Mademoiselle Harper's handkerchief be in the archives unless she too searches the past? I frowned, my mind racing. You think Lily's involved? She seemed shocked by Clara's death, but that resentment Edith mentioned. Could she have wanted Clara's role badly enough to kill? Poirot's gaze was distant, his little grey cells at work. Ambition, Hastings. It is a powerful motive, but not the only one. This handkerchief, the letter, the note Evelyn slipped under the door, these are pieces of a puzzle. The Ruby Theatre, it is built on secrets, and Clara Beaumont, she stumbled into one. We ascended to the auditorium, the weight of our discoveries heavy in the air. The ruby curtains, now still, seemed to watch us, their folds concealing truths yet to be unveiled. Poirot paused by the stage, his fingers brushing the edge of a prop table. Mademoiselle Marche, she speaks of shadows, but shadows require light to exist. We must find the source of this light, the truth behind her play. I glanced at the empty seats, imagining the audience's applause now replaced by the silence of suspicion. What's next, Poirot? Evelyn's hiding something, and that letter, it's too old to be about Clara, surely. Poirot's smile was faint but resolute. The past and present, they dance together, Hastings. The Ruby Theatre holds both, and we shall uncover their steps. Let us speak with Mademoiselle Harper next. She, too, has a role in this drama. As we left the archives, the echo of our footsteps mingled with the theatre's whispers, a reminder that every corner of this grand stage held a clue, waiting for Poirot's genius to bring it into the spotlight. Chapter 5. The Understudy's Ambition. The Ruby Theatre, though silent in the wake of Clara Beaumont's murder, pulsed with an undercurrent of tension, as if the very walls held their breath. I, Captain Hastings, found myself increasingly aware of the shadows cast by the ruby curtains, their crimson folds a constant reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. Hercule Poirot, however, moved through this charged atmosphere with his usual precision, his small frame a beacon of purpose as we sought out Lily Harper, the understudy who had stepped into Clara's spotlight. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low as we navigated the backstage corridors. "Mademoiselle Harper. She is a study in contrasts, ambition masked by modesty. We must observe her closely, for the heart of an understudy beats with dreams of the stage." We found Lily in the dressing room once occupied by Clara, now eerily empty, save for a scattering of cosmetics and a cracked mirror. Lily stood before it, rehearsing Clara's lines from the Crimson Veil with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Her auburn hair was pinned in a style mimicking Clara's. and her eyes, reflected in the glass, held a fire I hadn't noticed before. She started as we entered, her script fluttering to the floor. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I was just practicing. With Clara gone, Sir Reginald says the show must go on." Poirot's smile was courteous but probing. "Naturellement, Mademoiselle Harper. The theatre, it does not pause for grief. But tell me, how did you feel taking Mademoiselle Beaumont's place so suddenly?" Lily's cheeks flushed, and she busied herself with a powder puff. "It was awful, of course. Clara was a star, but I've trained for this role. I knew her lines, her movements. I had to perform, didn't I?" Her tone held a defensive edge, and I caught the faintest quiver of pride. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his gaze sweeping the dressing room. "And her costume, her props, did you handle them before the performance? The ruby hairpin, for instance, that was missing from her body?" Lily shook her head, too quickly, I thought. "No, Monsieur Poirot. Clara was particular about her things. Agnes, the seamstress, prepared her costume. I only wore it after she collapsed." I glanced at Poirot, sensing his mind at work. The handkerchief with LH initials found in the archives lingered in my thoughts. Could Lily have been searching for something connected to the theatre's past? Before I could voice this, a commotion erupted outside the dressing room. Victor Langston stormed in, his handsome face twisted with anger. "Lily, you've no right to be in here!" he snapped, his voice echoing off the walls. "This was Clara's space, not yours to parade in." Lily's eyes flashed. "Parade? I'm doing my job, Victor, unlike you, who can't stop mourning your precious Clara." Her words dripped with venom, and I realized their history ran deeper than professional rivalry. Poirot stepped between them, his presence calming yet authoritative. "Monsieur Langston, Mademoiselle Harper, s'il vous plaît. Your quarrel, it interests me. You were close to Mademoiselle Beaumont, monsieur, and yet you argue with her successor. Was there discord between you and Mademoiselle Harper as well?" Victor's jaw tightened, his gaze flicking to Lily. "We were engaged once, before Clara. It ended badly, but that's no concern of yours." "Oh, isn't it?" Lily retorted, her voice rising. "You couldn't stand that I was ready to step into her role, could you? You always thought I was second best." Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Enough. The past, it shapes the present, and in murder, all passions are relevant. Mademoiselle Harper, where were you during the second act before Clara's collapse?" Lily hesitated, her fingers twisting a strand of hair. "In the wings, watching. I always watch her scenes. It's how I learn. I didn't go near her, I swear." Poirot nodded, but his eyes were on the dressing table, where a small vial of stage makeup, rouge by its colour, caught his attention. He lifted it carefully, unscrewing the cap and sniffing its contents. His expression darkened. "Hastings, fetch Inspector Japp. This rouge, it has a faint scent of almonds." I hurried out, my pulse quickening. Almonds, cyanide, again. Japp was in the auditorium, overseeing the removal of Clara's body, and he followed me back, grumbling about Poirot's knack for finding trouble. "What's this, Poirot? More poison?" Poirot held up the vial. "This makeup, Inspector, it is not merely cosmetic. I suspect it contains the cyanide that killed Mademoiselle Beaumont. But how it was applied, and by whom, that is the question." Japp took the vial, his face grim. "Right, we'll have it tested. But this dressing room was Clara's. How did it get here?" Lily's eyes widened, her voice shrill. "I didn't touch it. I used my own makeup for the performance. Someone must have planted it." "Planted or misplaced?" Poirot mused, his tone unreadable. "Mademoiselle Harper, you say you were in the wings. Did you see anyone enter this room during the interval?" Lily shook her head, but her gaze darted to Victor, who stood silent, his fists clenched. "No one," she said faintly. "It was chaos, with everyone preparing for the next act." Victor snorted. "Convenient, Lily. Always in the right place to take what's not yours." Poirot's gaze shifted between them, his little grey cells no doubt cataloguing every nuance. "Monsieur Langston, you will remain available. And you, Mademoiselle Harper, do not leave the theatre until we speak again." As Japp escorted Lily and Victor out, I turned to Poirot. "Good Lord, Poirot, do you think Lily poisoned the makeup? Or Victor, out of spite?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The makeup, it is a clever method, intimate, subtle. But the killer? They are not so careless as to leave it here without purpose. Is it a clue or a distraction? The handkerchief with LH, the torn script, the letter in the archives, these threads, they weave a pattern, Hastings." I glanced around the dressing room, its mirrors reflecting the dim light like accusing eyes. But Lily's ambition, she wanted Clara's role, and Victor's anger, it's personal, isn't it? "Personal, oui," Poirot said, pacing slowly. "But murder, it is rarely simple. The Ruby Theatre, it is a stage for jealousy, for love betrayed, for secrets buried. This vial, it points to someone close to Clara, someone who knew her habits. The ruby curtains visible through the open door seemed to pulse with secrets, their folds hiding the truth as surely as the killer hid their intent." Poirot paused, his fingers brushing the cracked mirror. "We must look beyond the spotlight, Hastings. The understudy's ambition, it is but one act in this drama. The next, it will reveal more." As we left the dressing room, the theatre's shadows seemed to close in, whispering of motives yet uncovered. Clara Beaumont's death was no longer a single act of violence, but a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot was determined to unravel it thread by thread. Chapter 6. Echoes of applause. The Ruby Theatre, though steeped in tragedy, refused to surrender its pulse. By the following afternoon, the stage was alive again, not with an audience's fervour, but with the strained rhythm of a rehearsal. I, Captain Hastings, stood in the wings, marvelling at the troupe's resolve to continue the Crimson Veil, despite Clara Beaumont's murder. Hercule Poirot, however, saw beyond the footlights, his keen eyes dissecting every gesture and glance among the actors, as if they performed not a play, but a confession. "Hastings," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the clatter of props. "The theatre, it is a mirror of the soul. Here, in rehearsal, the masks slip, and we shall see the truth reflected." The auditorium was dim, its ruby curtains parted to reveal a set of Gothic arches and velvet drapes, a stage for betrayal, both scripted and real. Lily Harper, now thrust into Clara's role, moved with a nervous grace, her lines delivered with a hunger that bordered on desperation. Victor Langston, opposite her, recited his part with a brooding intensity, his eyes avoiding hers. Edith Crane, the stage manager, barked directions from the front row, her clipboard a shield against the chaos. Poirot, seated beside me in the stalls, leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "Observe, mon ami," he said, "the tension between Mademoiselle Harper and Monsieur Langston. Their past, it colours their performance. And Madame Crane, she commands, but her eyes betray." Unease, I nodded, noting Edith's tight grip on her pencil as she scribbled notes. The rehearsal scene was one of high drama, where Lily's character accused Victor's of treachery. The dialogue, penned by Evelyn Marsh, echoed the torn script page we'd found. "Betray me, and you shall pay in blood." I shivered, recalling its underlined words. and wondered if the play itself held the key to Clara's death. As the scene reached its climax, a stagehand, young Tommy Wells, hurried across the stage with a prop knife, meant to symbolize the play's threat of violence. He tripped, and the knife skittered across the boards, landing near Poirot's feet. I reached to retrieve it, but Poirot's hand shot out, stopping me. "Careful, Hastings," he said, lifting the knife with his handkerchief. He tested its edge with a gloved finger, his expression darkening. "This is no prop, mon ami. It is real, sharp enough to kill." "Good Lord, Poirot!" I exclaimed, my voice drawing glances from the stage. "How did a real knife get among the props?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A question most pertinent. This knife, it suggests intent, premeditation perhaps. Someone meant harm, and not only to Mademoiselle Beaumont." He handed the knife to a nearby constable, instructing him to deliver it to Inspector Japp, who was still combing the theatre for evidence. The rehearsal paused, the actors murmuring, as Edith strode onto the stage, her face pale. "That's impossible," she said, inspecting the knife's empty prop box. "I checked the props myself this morning. Someone must have switched it." "Switched, madame?" Poirot's tone was deceptively mild. "Or placed deliberately. Tell me, who has access to the prop table?" Edith hesitated, her eyes flicking to Tommy. "Anyone backstage? Stagehands, actors, even Sir Reginald. He's been hovering, insisting we resume performances to save the theatre's reputation." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Sir Reginald? He is most eager, no? Perhaps too eager." He turned to Tommy, who was wringing his hands. "Monsieur Wells, you handle the props. Did you see anyone near this table before the rehearsal?" Tommy shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. "No, sir, but it's hectic back there. Someone could have slipped in. I saw Sir Reginald near the props last night, after the police arrived." I exchanged a glance with Poirot, recalling the note about a meeting between Clara and R.H. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, the theatre's owner, had been a distant figure thus far, but his name kept surfacing like a shadow in the wings. Poirot rose, gesturing for me to follow him to the prop table, a cluttered array of goblets, candles and scripts. He examined each item with care, pausing at a velvet pouch that held costume jewellery. "Hastings," he said, "the ruby hairpin, it remains missing. But this knife, it tells us the killer is bold, reckless even. They risk discovery, to send a message." I frowned, my mind grappling with the clues. "A message? You mean they wanted us to find the knife?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his gaze distant. "Or they meant to use it and were interrupted. The cyanide, the knife, the torn script, these are not random. They are acts in a carefully staged drama." As the rehearsal resumed, I caught sight of Sir Reginald himself, standing at the back of the auditorium, his silver hair catching the light. He watched Lily with an intensity that unnerved me, and I leaned toward Poirot. "Sir Reginald's keen on keeping the show going. Could he be hiding something? That note about R.H. and Clara's meeting?" Poirot nodded, his eyes on Sir Reginald. "I spoke with him briefly this morning, Hastings. He claims the meeting was about funding for the play, but his manner, it lacks the sincerity. We must learn more of his connection to Mademoiselle Beaumont." I recounted my own conversation with Sir Reginald the previous night, during the chaos after Clara's death. He'd been adamant about reopening the theatre, dismissing the murder as a tragic setback. His words had struck me as callous, and I shared this with Poirot, who listened intently. "Callous or calculated," he mused. "The Ruby Theatre, it is his legacy, and legacies. They drive men to desperate acts. We must watch him closely." The rehearsal ended, the actors dispersing with strained smiles. Lily lingered, her eyes meeting Victor's briefly before she turned away. Edith gathered her clipboard, her movements brisk but mechanical. The ruby curtains, now closed, seemed to absorb the echoes of applause that had once filled the space, replaced now by whispers of suspicion. Poirot stood, his small figure commanding despite the vastness of the auditorium. "Hastings! The knife! It is a warning, a sign that the killer is not finished. The play! It mirrors the crime, and we must study its lines to find the truth." As we left the stage, the theatre's shadows seemed to deepen, the air thick with secrets. Clara Beaumont's murder was no longer a single act, but a performance with many players. And Poirot's little grey cells were poised to uncover the next act in this deadly drama. Chapter 7. The Patron's Gambit, the Ruby Theatre, by evening, had transformed into a glittering stage for Sir Reginald Hawthorne's gala. A bold attempt to restore the venue's lustre after Clara Beaumont's shocking murder. The foyer, aglow with chandeliers, brimmed with London's elite, their laughter and clinking glasses a stark contrast to the grim events of the previous night. I, Captain Hastings, felt out of place among the fur stoles and diamond cufflinks, but Hercule Poirot moved through the crowd with the ease of a man born to such settings, his eyes sharp beneath his impeccable demeanour. "Hastings," he murmured, adjusting his bow tie. "This gala, it is not merely a celebration. It is a chessboard, and Sir Reginald plays a dangerous game. We must find Lady Beatrice Colton, the patron who funded the Crimson Veil. Her motives, they may illuminate the shadows." I nodded, scanning the crowd for Lady Beatrice, a formidable woman known for her wealth and disdain for theatrics. Ironic, given her patronage of the Ruby Theatre. The air was thick with perfume and intrigue, the ruby-red banisters of the grand staircase gleaming under the crystal light. Waiters glided past, bearing trays of champagne, while a string quartet played a haunting melody that seemed to echo the theatre's secrets. We found Lady Beatrice near a marble pillar, her silver gown shimmering as she held court among a cluster of admirers. Her sharp features and piercing blue eyes gave her the air of a queen, though her smile was as cold as the diamonds at her throat. "Monsieur Poirot," she said as we approached, her voice smooth but guarded. "I heard you were sniffing about. Surely you don't suspect me of anything so sordid as murder?" Poirot inclined his head, his smile courteous yet piercing. "Madame, in a theatre, all are players until proven otherwise. You funded Mademoiselle Beaumont's play, yet I hear you did not care for her. Why invest in a star you despised?" Lady Beatrice's laugh was brittle, like glass on the verge of shattering. "Clara was a necessary evil, Monsieur Poirot. Her name drew crowds, and crowds mean profit. The Ruby Theatre is an investment, not a charity. But yes, she was insufferable, arrogant, manipulative. I tolerated her for Sir Reginald's sake." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And Sir Reginald, he relied on your generosity. Did Mademoiselle Beaumont's behaviour ever threaten this arrangement?" Lady Beatrice's fingers tightened around her champagne flute. "She had a knack for making enemies, but I'm no fool. I don't settle scores with poison." Her gaze flickered to the crowd, where Sir Reginald was charming a group of investors, his silver hair catching the light. I watched her closely, noting the tension in her posture. Poirot, ever observant, shifted his line of inquiry. "Madame, during the premiere, you were in the audience. Did you notice anything unusual, perhaps near the stage or in the foyer?" She hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "Nothing specific. The play was riveting, despite Clara's theatrics. But I did see that playwright, Evelyn Marsh, lurking near the private door before the second act. She's an odd one, always scribbling in that notebook." Poirot's moustache twitched, no doubt recalling Evelyn's cryptic note from the premiere. "Merci, madame. And your jewellery, those ruby earrings, they are most striking. Did you wear them that night?" Lady Beatrice touched one earring, a ruby teardrop that matched the theatre's curtains. "These? No, I wore pearls. Rubies are too bold for a premiere." Her tone was dismissive, but I caught a flicker of unease. As we moved away, Poirot's voice dropped to a whisper. "Hastings, her denial! It is too quick. The ruby hairpin missing from Clara's costume. Perhaps it was not the only ruby lost that night." We mingled further, the gala's extravagance overwhelming. Crystal flutes sparkled, and the quartet's music wove through conversations about stocks and scandals. I spotted a waiter, a nervous young man with a tray of canapés, and recalled Poirot's knack for gleaning secrets from the overlooked. "Excuse me," I said, approaching him. "You worked the premiere, didn't you? Did you see anything odd? Perhaps a late-night meeting?" The waiter, startled, nearly dropped his tray. I shouldn't say, sir, but I overheard Sir Reginald arranging to meet someone in his office after the first act. Couldn't hear who, but he sounded agitated." I relayed this to Poirot, who nodded thoughtfully. "Sir Reginald, he is a man of many roles. Owner, host, conspirator, perhaps. Let us explore further, Hastings." We slipped into the auditorium, where the stage lay dark, the ruby curtains drawn. Poirot's eyes scanned the floor near the prop table, where the poisoned makeup vial had been found. He paused, crouching to retrieve a small object glinting in the dim light, a ruby earring, identical to those Lady Beatrice wore tonight. "Mon Dieu," he said, holding it up. "This was near the vial, Hastings. A careless mistake, or a deliberate clue." I gasped. "Lady Beatrice lied. She said she didn't wear rubies that night. Could she have been in the dressing room?" Poirot's expression was grave. "Or someone wishes us to think so. The earring, the poisoned makeup, the real dagger. They are pieces of a puzzle, but the picture, it is not yet clear." We returned to the gala, the music now jarring against the weight of our discovery. Sir Reginald approached, his smile strained. "Monsieur Poirot, enjoying the evening? The Ruby Theatre will rise above this tragedy, I assure you." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "Monsieur, your optimism is admirable, but murder, it casts a long shadow. Tell me, did you meet Mademoiselle Beaumont the night she died?" Sir Reginald's smile faltered. "A brief discussion, yes, about the play's future. Nothing more." He excused himself, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, a crack in his polished facade. As the gala continued, Poirot drew me aside. "Hastings, this earring, it points to Lady Beatrice, but the killer, they are clever. They plant clues to mislead, to distract. The meeting with Sir Reginald, the note from Evelyn, the ambition of Lily, these are threads in a tapestry of deceit." The ruby curtains loomed beyond the foyer, their crimson folds a silent witness to the drama unfolding. I felt the weight of the mystery, each clue a step closer to the truth, yet further from resolution. Poirot's little grey cells were at work, and I knew he would not rest until the killer's mask was torn away. Chapter 8. The Costume Room Conspiracy. The Ruby Theatre, with its labyrinth of passages and hidden nooks, seemed to guard its secrets as fiercely as a vault. The morning after Sir Reginald's extravagant gala, I, Captain Hastings, followed Hercule Poirot through the backstage corridors, the air heavy with the scent of mothballs and old velvet. The ruby earring, found near the poisoned makeup vial, weighed on my mind, but Poirot's focus had shifted to the costume room, where Clara Beaumont's attire, particularly her missing ruby hairpin, might yield answers. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice a low murmur as we approached a door marked costumes. "The costume, it is the skin of the character, but also a canvas for truth. Clara's hairpin, it was no mere ornament. We must find it, and with it, the hand that placed the poison." The costume room was a cavern of fabric and fantasy, its walls lined with racks of gowns, cloaks, and feathered headdresses. Bolts of silk and satin spilled from shelves, and a long table held sewing machines, spools of thread, and scattered pins that glinted like tiny daggers. Agnes, the seamstress, stood at the table, her grey hair pulled into a tight bun, her hands deftly stitching a tear in a velvet cape. Her face, lined with years of labour, hardened as she saw us. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice gruff, "I've no time for questions. The troupe needs new costumes for tomorrow's rehearsal, and I'm behind." Poirot's smile was disarming, yet his eyes were sharp as needles. "Madame Agnès, your work, it is the soul of the theatre, non? You dressed Mademoiselle Beaumont for her final performance. Tell me, her ruby hairpin, did you place it in her hair?" Agnes's needle paused, her lips pursing. "I did, before the show. Clara was particular, insisted on that pin, said it made her feel like a queen. But she was cruel, Monsieur Poirot. Last week she mocked my stitching in front of the crew, called me a clumsy old hag. I've served this theatre 30 years, and never such disrespect." I felt a pang of sympathy, but Poirot's expression remained impassive. "And after you pinned her hair, madame, did you see the hairpin again?" Agnes shook her head, her eyes darting to a pile of fabric. "Not after she went on stage. I was busy mending Victor's coat. He tore it during rehearsal. Clara must have lost it during the performance." Poirot's gaze swept the room, settling on a wooden box labelled Beaumont C. He opened it, revealing Clara's sapphire gown, now neatly folded, its sequins dulled in the dim light. He ran his gloved fingers along the hem, pausing at a seam near the collar. With a delicate tug, he extracted a small object that caught the light. A ruby hairpin, its prongs bent as if forcibly removed. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, holding it up. "The missing pin, hidden in the seam. Madame Agnès, you did not notice this when you stored the gown?" Agnes's face paled, her hands trembling. "No, Monsieur Poirot. I swear I didn't see it. Someone must have hidden it there after she died." I exchanged a glance with Poirot, my mind racing. The hairpin, so central to Clara's costume, now seemed a key to her murder. Could Agnes, humiliated by Clara, have tampered with it? Poirot, however, was already examining a sketchbook on the table, its pages filled with costume designs. One sketch of Clara's gown bore a series of numbers scrawled in the margin, 37129. "Curieux," Poirot said, his fingers tracing the numbers. "A code, perhaps, or a message? Madame Agnès, who uses this sketchbook?" "It's mine," Agnes admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't write those numbers. I sketched designs, not codes." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "In a theatre, madame, everything is a performance, even innocence. This code, it suggests a secret, perhaps blackmail. Did Mademoiselle Beaumont know something that threatened another?" Agnes's eyes widened, and I sensed she was holding back. "I don't know about blackmail," she said too quickly. "Clara was always stirring trouble, flirting with Victor, taunting Lily, even arguing with Sir Reginald about money, but I kept out of it. I couldn't stay silent. Poirot! That note on the bulletin board. CB to meet RH at 11. If Clara was arguing with Sir Reginald, could she have been blackmailing him? Poirot nodded, his expression thoughtful. A possibility, Hastings. The hairpin, the poisoned makeup, the earring, now this code. They point to a web of deceit. Someone in this theatre wished to silence Clara, and the costume room, it is a stage for their conspiracy. As we continued our search, I overheard a hushed argument in the corridor. Creeping to the door, I glimpsed Victor Langston and Edith Crane, their voices low but heated. "You should have kept quiet," Victor hissed. "If they find out about the money, we're finished." Edith's reply was sharp. "I didn't say anything, Victor, but if you don't control yourself, Poirot will know everything." I relayed this to Poirot, whose moustache twitched with interest. "Money, Hastings. Always it returns to money or passion. This argument, it confirms our suspicions. The Ruby Theatre, it is built on secrets, and Clara, she stumbled into one too dangerous to keep." We left the costume room, the ruby hairpin and coded sketchbook now in Poirot's possession. Agnes watched us go, her hands twisting her apron, and I wondered if her grudge against Clara ran deeper than words. The theatre's corridors seemed to close in, their shadows whispering of betrayal. The ruby curtains, visible through an open stage door, loomed like a silent judge, their crimson folds concealing the truth. Poirot paused, his fingers brushing the hairpin. "This pin, Hastings, it was not lost by accident. It was hidden, perhaps to conceal how the poison was delivered. The code, it points to a larger game. Blackmail, perhaps, or a debt unpaid." I frowned, piecing together the clues. "But who, Poirot? Agnes for revenge? Victor for whatever he's hiding with Edith? Or Lady Beatrice with her earring near the poison?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The killer, they are clever, planting clues to confuse. But Hercule Poirot, he sees through the performance. We must unravel this code and learn what Clara knew that cost her life." As we emerged into the auditorium, the theatre's silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant creak of a stage mechanism. The mystery deepened, each clue a thread in a tapestry Poirot was determined to unravel, and I knew the Ruby Theatre's secrets were far from fully revealed. Chapter 9. The Ghost Light's Warning. The Ruby Theatre, cloaked in the stillness of midnight, seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The grandeur of its ruby curtains and gilded arches faded into shadows, and the air carried a chill that went beyond the autumn night. I, Captain Hastings, followed Hercule Poirot through the darkened auditorium, my nerves taut as a bowstring. The discovery of the ruby hairpin and the coded message in the costume room had deepened the mystery. And Poirot, ever relentless, insisted on a late-night search to uncover what the theatre concealed under cover of darkness. "Hastings," Poirot whispered, his voice barely disturbing the silence. "The theatre at night, it is a place of truth. The ghost light, it burns to keep spirits at bay. But tonight, it may reveal a murderer." I shivered, glancing at the single bulb glowing on stage. The ghost light, a theatrical tradition to ward off misfortune. Its feeble glow cast long, wavering shadows, making the ruby curtains appear to ripple like blood. Poirot's patent shoes clicked softly as he led the way to the stage, his small figure undaunted by the oppressive atmosphere. We had come to investigate the trapdoor noted earlier, its grease paint smudge a lingering clue. The stage was a maze of props left from the day's rehearsal. A velvet cloak, a candelabra, a wooden throne. Poirot knelt by the trapdoor, his gloved fingers tracing its edges. "This passage," he said, "it leads to the understage, a perfect route for one who wishes to move unseen. But what else does it hide? I held a flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom as Poirot lifted the trapdoor. A musty draught rose, carrying the scent of dust and something metallic. He descended the narrow ladder, and I followed, my heart pounding. The understage was a low, cavernous space, cluttered with ropes, pulleys, and forgotten props. In the dim light, I spotted something near a crate. A white glove, its cuff stained with dark, dried blood. "Good Lord, Poirot!" I exclaimed, pointing. "Blood! Could this be from another crime?" Poirot retrieved the glove with his handkerchief, examining it closely. "Blood? Oui, but whose? And why leave it here unless to be found?" He sniffed the stain, his expression unreadable. "Not fresh, Hastings, but recent. This glove, it is a warning or a mistake." I felt a chill, the understage's shadows pressing in. "A warning? You think the killer's planning another murder?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the flashlight's beam. "In a theatre, mon ami, every act builds to a climax. This glove, it suggests the drama is not yet over. We must return to the stage and question those who linger here." We climbed back to the stage, the ghost light's glow casting eerie patterns on the ruby curtains. To my surprise, we found Edith Crane, the stage manager, near the prop table, sorting papers by lamplight. Her stern face tightened at our approach, her clipboard clutched like a shield. "Madame Crane," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild, "you work late." "The theatre? It is closed, yet you remain." "Why?" Edith's eyes flicked to the glove in Poirot's hand, and I caught a flash of fear. I had to organize the props for tomorrow," she said. "With Clara's death, everything's in disarray." Poirot held up the glove. "And this, madame?" "Found beneath the stage, stained with blood. Can you explain it?" Edith's hands trembled, her voice sharp. "I've never seen it. I was in my office all evening, checking schedules. Ask Tommy. He saw me." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Monsieur Wells, he is a convenient witness. But let us test this alibi. Where were you during the interval of the premiere, when Mademoiselle Beaumont was poisoned?" Edith hesitated, her gaze darting to the curtains. "I was backstage, managing the crew. I told you, Clara was arguing with someone. I didn't see who." "Yet," Poirot pressed, "Monsieur Wells said you were not in your office during the interval. He saw you near the dressing room, madame, close to where the poisoned makeup was found." Edith's face paled, her clipboard slipping slightly. "Tommy's mistaken. I was nowhere near the dressing room. I was checking the lighting cues." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A discrepancy, madame. In murder, discrepancies are like cracks in a mirror. They reveal the truth beneath. You knew Mademoiselle Beaumont's habits, her costume. Did you also know of a secret she held, one worth killing for?" Edith's voice rose, defensive. "I didn't kill her. Clara was trouble, always demanding, always pushing people away. But I had no reason to harm her," I interjected, unable to hold back. "Poirot, that argument Victor and Edith had, about money? Could Edith be hiding something financial, maybe tied to Sir Reginald?" Poirot nodded, his gaze never leaving Edith. "We, Hastings. The note, CB to meet RH at 11. The coded message, now this glove. These suggest a conspiracy, perhaps one of greed. Madame Crane, you will tell Inspector Japp of your movements, and we shall see if they hold." Edith stormed off, her footsteps echoing, and I turned to Poirot. "Her alibi's crumbling, isn't it? And that glove, whose blood is it?" Poirot's expression was grave. "The blood, it may be Clara's, or another's. The laboratory will tell us. But this glove, left so carelessly, it is like the ruby earring. a clue that points too clearly. The killer, they play a game, Hastings, to confuse or to taunt. The ghost light flickered, casting shadows that danced across the stage. I thought of the theatre's superstitions, the tales of spirits haunting empty stages. "Poirot," I said, "this place feels alive, like it's watching us. Do you believe in the ghost light's warning?" Poirot's smile was faint but resolute. "Superstition, it is the shadow of fear, Hastings. But fear, it reveals truth. This glove, it warns of danger, and we must heed it before another falls." We left the stage, the ruby curtains swaying gently as if stirred by an unseen hand. The theatre's silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the ghost light. Each clue, the hairpin, the earring, the coded message, now the glove, wove a tapestry of deceit. And I knew Poirot's little grey cells were piecing it together, act by act. Chapter 10. The Director's Deception. The Ruby Theatre, though steeped in the sombre aftermath of Clara Beaumont's murder, pulsed with the restless energy of a stage awaiting its next act. The morning light filtered through high windows, casting a pale glow on the ruby curtains, which seemed to guard the secrets of the night before. I, Captain Hastings, followed Hercule Poirot as we sought out Maurice Duval, the director of the Crimson Veil, whose insistence on continuing rehearsals had piqued Poirot's suspicions. The blood-stained glove, found in the understage, weighed heavily on my mind, but Poirot's focus was razor-sharp, his little grey cells already weaving the threads of this intricate mystery. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low as we entered the auditorium. "Monsieur Duval. He shapes the performance, but perhaps also the crime. His direction, it is not only of actors, but of truths concealed. We must uncover what he hides." We found Maurice in his office, a cluttered space overlooking the stage, its walls plastered with sketches and scripts. He was a wiry man with a shock of dark hair and a nervous energy, his French accent sharp as he barked orders into a telephone. He hung up abruptly as we entered, his eyes narrowing. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," he said, forcing a smile. "I'm swamped with preparations. This tragedy, it disrupts everything. What do you want?" Poirot's smile was courteous but unyielding. "Monsieur Duval, your play, The Crimson Veil, it is most remarkable. I have learned that you altered the script recently, adding a scene where the heroine is poisoned. A curious choice, non, given Mademoiselle Beaumont's fate." Maurice's face paled, his fingers drumming on the desk. "A coincidence, Monsieur Poirot. The script needed drama, and poison, it's theatrical, no?" Evelyn Marsh approved the change. It was her idea, in fact. Poirot's eyes gleamed, and I recalled Evelyn's cryptic demeanour. Her note slipped under the private door. "Indeed," Poirot said, pacing slowly, "but this scene, it mirrors the murder too closely. Tell me, monsieur, how well did you know Mademoiselle Beaumont? Were there tensions?" Maurice's laugh was brittle. "Clara was a diva, demanding, impossible, but she was my star. I had no reason to harm her." His gaze darted to a stack of papers, and I sensed he was holding back. Poirot, ever perceptive, pressed further. "And your finances, monsieur? The theatre, it is an expensive mistress. I have heard whispers of a loan from Sir Reginald Hawthorne, one that weighs heavily. Did Mademoiselle Beaumont know of this?" Maurice's hands clenched, his voice rising. "That's none of your business. Yes, I borrowed from Sir Reginald. Times are tough, and the theatre's costs are endless." But Clara knew nothing of it. I kept my affairs private. I interjected, unable to resist. "Poirot, that note, CB to meet RH at 11. If Clara was meeting Sir Reginald, could she have learned about Maurice's debts? Poirot nodded, his moustache twitching. A fine observation, Hastings. Monsieur Duval, where were you during the interval of the premiere, when Mademoiselle Beaumont was poisoned? Maurice hesitated, his eyes flickering. I was in the wings directing the crew. Edith can confirm it. She was with me. Curieux, Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. Madame Crane, she claims she was checking lighting cues, not with you. Another discrepancy, monsieur. In my experience, such inconsistencies hide truths. I recall a case, the murder of Roger Ackroyd, where a lie about time unravelled a killer's web. Shall we unravel yours? Maurice's face flushed, his voice sharp. I'm no killer. Clara's death hurts the theatre, hurts me. I've nothing to hide. Poirot's gaze shifted to the stage, visible through the office window. Then let us explore the stage itself, monsieur. The trapdoor, the mechanism used to move scenery. Perhaps it holds answers. We descended to the stage, Maurice trailing reluctantly. The ruby curtains loomed, their crimson folds catching the morning light. Poirot knelt by the trapdoor, its grease paint smudge still visible, and examined a nearby pulley system. His fingers traced a hidden lever, concealed behind a painted flat. With a gentle tug, a panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage leading to the understage. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. A secret mechanism, Hastings, perfect for an escape or an entrance. The killer, they used this to slip away after poisoning Mademoiselle Beaumont. I gasped, picturing a shadowy figure vanishing into the theatre's depths. But who, Poirot? Maurice? He knew the stage better than anyone. Maurice's voice was shrill. I didn't use it. I was directing, not skulking in passages. Anyone could have found that lever. Stagehands, actors, even Sir Reginald. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Sir Reginald? He is a name that recurs. The note, the loan, now this mechanism. Monsieur Duval, you will tell Inspector Japp of your debts and your movements. We shall see if they align. As Maurice stormed off, muttering in French, I turned to Poirot. His script change. It's too perfect, isn't it? And that loan from Sir Reginald. Could Clara have been blackmailing them both? Poirot's expression was grave. The theatre, Hastings, it is a house of mirrors reflecting lies. The poisoned makeup, the ruby hairpin, the blood-stained glove. Now this passage, they point to a plan, meticulous yet desperate. Maurice, he is a man cornered, but is he the killer, or a pawn? I glanced at the ruby curtains, their folds seeming to whisper secrets. What now, Poirot? The clues are piling up, but they don't point to one person. Poirot's smile was resolute. The clues, they are like notes in a symphony, Hastings. Alone, they are discordant, but together they will sing the truth. We must revisit the coded message from the costume room. It may unlock the director's deception. The stage lay silent, its props a silent audience to our investigation. The memory of the murder of Roger Ackroyd lingered, a reminder of Poirot's genius in unravelling lies. As we left the stage, the ruby curtains swayed gently, as if bidding us to peel back another layer of the Ruby Theatre's dark drama. Chapter 11. The Ruby Curtain Rises. The Ruby Theatre, bathed in the golden glow of its stage lights, seemed to hold its breath as Hercule Poirot prepared his most theatrical gambit yet. The auditorium, usually alive with applause, was now a silent arena. Its ruby curtains parted to reveal a stage set for truth rather than fiction. I, Captain Hastings, stood beside Poirot, my heart racing with anticipation. The clues we had gathered, the ruby hairpin, the poisoned makeup, the blood-stained glove, the coded message, the hidden stage mechanism, had woven a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot was ready to unravel it. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low but resonant. "Tonight, we stage not a play, but a revelation. The killer, they hide among the players, but the reenactment of Mademoiselle Beaumont's death will force their hand. The suspects, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, Lady Beatrice Colton, Evelyn Marsh, Maurice Duval, Edith Crane, Lily Harper, Victor Langston, and Agnes the seamstress. Gathered on stage, their faces a mix of apprehension and defiance." Inspector Japp, his notepad at the ready, stood in the wings, while a few constables guarded the exits. The props from the Crimson Veil were arranged as they had been on the night of the murder. The goblet, the velvet cloak, the candelabra, all under the watchful gaze of the ruby curtains. Poirot stepped centre stage, his small figure commanding as any leading man. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his eyes sweeping the group, "Clara Beaumont died here, poisoned by cyanide in the second act. But how was it done, and by whom? Let us recreate the scene and see what truths emerge." He directed Lily Harper to take Clara's place, wearing a replica of the sapphire gown, though without the ruby hairpin. Victor Langston stood opposite, holding the prop goblet, his expression tense. Maurice Duval called out stage directions, his voice strained, while Edith Crane adjusted a spotlight with trembling hands. Poirot, ever observant, handed Lily a script, its pages marked with the fatal scene. "Begin," Poirot commanded. Lily delivered Clara's lines, her voice faltering as she sipped from the goblet. A harmless prop Japp had ensured. As she moved across the stage, Poirot's eyes darted to the trapdoor, its hidden lever gleaming faintly. "Stop!" he cried, just as Lily reached the spot where Clara had collapsed. The troupe froze, and Poirot pointed to the trapdoor. This mechanism, it allowed the killer to slip away, unseen, but the poison, it was not in the goblet, nor in the makeup as we first thought. The ruby hairpin, hidden in the costume room, was the key. Agnes gasped, her hands twisting her apron. "I told you, Monsieur Poirot, I didn't hide it. Someone placed it there." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Perhaps, Madame Agnes, but let us test another theory." He turned to Victor. "Monsieur Langston, you were closest to Clara. Your alibi, it is weak. You were not with Edith during the interval, as you claimed." Victor's face reddened. "I was in my dressing room alone. I didn't touch her." "And you, Madame Crane," Poirot continued, his gaze piercing, "you lied about checking lighting cues. You were near the dressing room, where the poisoned makeup was found. Why?" Edith's clipboard clattered to the stage. "I was looking for Clara's script. She'd misplaced it, and I thought, 'Enough!'" Poirot interrupted, his voice sharp. He held up the blood-stained glove. "This glove, found beneath the stage, bears blood. Clara's, the laboratory confirms. It was used to handle the hairpin, perhaps to apply the poison." Lady Beatrice, her ruby earrings glinting, scoffed. "This is absurd, Monsieur Poirot. You've no proof I was involved, despite that earring you found." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The earring, madame. It was a distraction, like the coded message in the costume room, 37129. I have deciphered it, a reference to a ledger page in the theatre's archives, detailing a loan from you to Sir Reginald, secured by Clara's contract. She threatened to expose this, did she not?" Sir Reginald's face paled, his silver hair catching the light. "Clara knew nothing. I met her that night to discuss her salary, not some loan." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the protests. "Let us continue." He directed Lily to move toward the candelabra, where a faint glint caught his eye. A small vial, hidden among the candles. Before anyone could react, Maurice lunged forward, his hand reaching for it. Poirot was faster, seizing the vial with his handkerchief. Mon Dieu, Monsieur Duval! Another attempt at poison? This vial, it smells of cyanide. The troop gasped, and Japp's men moved to restrain Maurice, who struggled, his face contorted. I didn't put it there. Someone's framing me. Poirot's voice was calm but unyielding. The killer? They planned a second murder, perhaps to silence another who knew too much. But Hercule Poirot, he does not allow such plans to succeed, turned to Evelyn Marsh, who stood silently, her notebook clutched tightly. Mademoiselle Marsh, your play, it foretold this crime. Your note slipped under the private door. Was it a warning or an instruction? Evelyn's eyes widened, but she remained silent, her pen still. I leaned toward Poirot, whispering, Good Lord, Poirot, you've caught them off guard. But who's the killer? Poirot's smile was faint. The killer, Hastings, is close, but the stage is not yet set for the final reveal. This reenactment, it has shown us lies, Victor's, Edith's, Maurice's. The clues, the hairpin, the glove, the earring, the code, they point to a mind that manipulates the theatre itself. The ruby curtains swayed, as if stirred by an unseen breath, and I felt a chill. The troop dispersed, their faces pale, while Japp took the vial for testing. Poirot drew me aside, his voice low. Hastings, the killer's hand faltered tonight, but they will strike again unless we act swiftly. The ledger, the loan, the blackmail, these are the motives, and the Ruby Theatre, it is their stage. I glanced at the empty auditorium, the ghost light flickering in the distance. What now, Poirot? You've shaken them, but we're no closer to the truth. Poirot's eyes gleamed with resolve. The truth, mon ami, it is like the curtain. It rises slowly, but rise it will. Tomorrow we shall confront the final act. The stage lay silent. The ruby curtains a crimson veil over secrets yet to be unveiled. Poirot's reenactment had set the stage for justice, and I knew his little grey cells were poised for the final bow. Chapter 12. The Final Bow. The Ruby Theatre's auditorium, bathed in the soft glow of its chandeliers, held a solemn air, as if the very walls anticipated the revelation to come. The ruby curtains, parted to frame the stage, stood like silent sentinels, their crimson folds a testament to the drama that had unfolded. I, Captain Hastings, sat among the suspects. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, Lady Beatrice Colton, Evelyn Marsh, Maurice Duval, Edith Crane, Lily Harper, Victor Langston, and Agnes the seamstress. In the front row, my heart pounding as Hercule Poirot took centre stage. Inspector Japp stood in the wings, his men poised at the exits, ready for the climax of this intricate mystery. Poirot's small figure commanded the stage, his eyes gleaming with the certainty of truth. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his voice resonant, Clara Beaumont's murder was no mere act of passion, but a performance of cunning, woven into the fabric of this theatre. Tonight, Hercule Poirot reveals the killer, and the ruby curtain shall rise on justice. The suspects shifted uneasily, their faces a gallery of fear and defiance. Poirot paced slowly, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. The clues, he said, they were many. The ruby hairpin, hidden in a seam, the poisoned makeup vial, the blood-stained glove, the ruby earring, the coded message, 37129, the hidden stage mechanism, the torn script page. Each a thread in a tapestry of deceit. But let us begin with the method. He held up the ruby hairpin, its prongs glinting. The poison cyanide was not in the goblet or the makeup as we first thought. It was applied to this hairpin, coated with a slow-dissolving resin that released the poison when warmed by Clara's body heat during the performance. The killer, they knew her habit of adjusting the pin between acts, A fatal gesture. I gasped, the ingenuity chilling. "But who, Poirot?" I whispered, though my voice carried in the silent auditorium. Poirot's gaze swept the group. The motive, it was twofold: revenge and greed, rooted in a scandal from the theatre's past. In the archives, we found a letter from E.C., demanding payment from Lord Percival Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's father. This E.C. was Edith Crane's mother, Eliza Crane, a seamstress wronged by Percival, who promised her a share of the theatre's profits but betrayed her. Clara Beaumont, researching her role, discovered this secret and used it to blackmail Sir Reginald, threatening to expose his family's shame. Sir Reginald's face drained of colour, his silver hair stark against his pallor. "Lies, Poirot! Clara knew nothing of my father." Poirot raised a hand. "Non, monsieur. The note, CB to meet RH at 11, confirms your meeting with her. You refused her demands, but another acted to protect you." The coded message, 37129, pointed to a ledger page detailing a loan from Lady Beatrice, secured by Clara's contract, a contract she threatened to break, endangering the theatre's finances. Lady Beatrice's ruby earrings flashed as she stood. "I had no part in this. My earring was planted to frame me." "Oui, madame," Poirot said, "a distraction, like the blood-stained glove, which bore Clara's blood from the hairpin's application. But the killer, they were clever, using the hidden stage mechanism to slip away after planting the poison. This brings us to the director, Maurice Duval." Maurice leapt to his feet, his face contorted. "I didn't kill her. My debts were private." Poirot's voice was calm, but unyielding. "Your debts, monsieur, were known to Clara, who taunted you with them, but you are not the killer. The true culprit is one who knew the theatre's secrets, who moved unseen, who harboured a grudge deepened by years of loyalty." He turned to Edith Crane, whose clipboard fell with a clatter. "Madame Crane," Poirot said, "you are the killer. Your mother's betrayal by the Hawthorns fueled your resentment, and Clara's blackmail of Sir Reginald threatened the theatre you served for decades. You poisoned the hairpin, using the trapdoor to escape. You planted the earring to implicate Lady Beatrice, the glove to confuse, and the coded message to obscure your motive. A final act of vengeance for your mother's ruin." Edith's face crumpled, her voice a sob. "Clara would have destroyed us. She demanded half the theatre's profits, laughing at my mother's memory. I couldn't let her ruin Sir Reginald, ruin everything I've worked for." The auditorium erupted in gasps. Japp's men moved to restrain Edith, who collapsed weeping. Sir Reginald buried his face in his hands, while Lily and Victor exchanged stunned glances. Evelyn Marsh closed her notebook, her expression unreadable. Poirot continued, his voice softer now. "The torn script page, the note you slipped, Mademoiselle Marsh, they were warnings, oui? You suspected Edith's rage, but could not act directly." Evelyn nodded faintly. "I wrote the play to hint at the truth, hoping someone would see." I turned to Poirot, my voice thick with awe. "You've done it again, Poirot. But how did you know?" Poirot's smile was weary. "The little grey cells, Hastings. They see the pattern where others see chaos. Edith's lies, her false alibi, her access to the costume room, her knowledge of the stage betrayed her. The theatre, it was her life, and Clara, her enemy." As Japp led Edith away, the suspects dispersed, their faces etched with relief and sorrow. Poirot and I stood alone on the stage, the ruby curtains framing us. "A tragic motive, Hastings," he said, "born of loyalty twisted into vengeance. The Ruby Theatre, it is cleansed, but its scars remain." I nodded, my heart heavy. Poor Edith! She served this place only to destroy it. Poirot's eyes softened. The human heart, it is the true stage, mon ami. And now the curtain falls on this act. The ghost light flickered, casting a final glow on the stage. The mystery was solved, the killer unmasked, but the Ruby Theatre's echoes, of applause, of betrayal, would linger long after we left. Chapter 13. The Curtain Falls. The Ruby Theatre stood silent under the London dusk, its neoclassical facade softened by the mist that curled through Covent Garden streets. The ruby curtains, now drawn across the stage within, seemed to mark the end of a drama that had shaken the theatre to its core. I, Captain Hastings, stood beside Hercule Poirot on the pavement outside, the chill of the autumn evening seeping through my coat. The case was solved, Edith Crane unmasked as Clara Beaumont's killer, yet a heaviness lingered, as if the theatre's secrets still whispered in the air. Poirot, his small figure impeccable in his overcoat, gazed at the theatre's arched entrance, his eyes distant. "Mon ami," he said, his voice soft but resonant, "the Ruby Theatre, it is a place of illusion, but also of truth. We have lifted the veil, and justice, it is served. Yet the heart, it feels the weight of such truths." I nodded, my thoughts drifting to Edith's tearful confession, her loyalty to the theatre twisted into vengeance. "It's tragic, Poirot," I said. "She served the Ruby Theatre for years, only to destroy it with her own hands, all for a grudge from her mother's time." Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile breaking his sombre expression. "The human heart, Hastings. It is a stage where passion and reason battle. Edith Crane, she chose passion. Revenge for her mother's betrayal by the Hawthorns. Clara's blackmail. It was the spark that ignited a fire, long smouldering." We began to walk, the cobblestones slick beneath our feet, the gaslights casting a warm glow through the mist. The theatre's marquee, still proclaiming the crimson veil, seemed a relic of the drama we had unravelled. I thought of the clues, the ruby hairpin laced with cyanide, the blood-stained glove, the coded message, the hidden stage mechanism, and marvelled at Poirot's genius in piecing them together. "You were brilliant, Poirot," I said, my voice warm with admiration. "The way you saw through Edith's lies, connecting the ledger to her mother's scandal. I'd have been lost without your little grey cells." Poirot's smile widened, though his eyes held a trace of weariness. "The little grey cells, they are tireless, Hastings, but even they grow heavy with the years. This case, it reminds me of another one that may be my last." His words echoed curtain, a case I knew weighed on him, though he rarely spoke of it. I stopped, concern tightening my chest. "Your last? Surely not, Poirot. You've years of mysteries ahead." He chuckled, a soft melodic sound. "Perhaps, mon ami. But the stage of life, it calls for new players. I think of your daughter, Judith. Such spirit, such fire. She will need a partner worthy of her, non?" I laughed, caught off guard by the shift in topic. "Judith? She's headstrong, Poirot, and not one for matchmaking. But I confess, I worry about her future. She's so independent, always chasing her own path." Poirot's eyes twinkled with mischief. "And yet, Hastings, a father's heart sees what a daughter does not. There is a young doctor I met recently, a man of intellect and kindness. Perhaps an introduction when the time is right." I shook my head, amused. "You're incorrigible, Poirot. Solving murders by day, matchmaking by night. But I'll consider it if Judith doesn't scare him off first." We paused by a lamppost, the theatre's silhouette looming behind us. The mist swirled, softening the edges of the world, and I felt a pang of nostalgia. Poirot and I had faced countless mysteries together, from the Orient Express to the Nile, and each had strengthened our bond. Yet this case, with its echoes of betrayal and loyalty, felt different, as if it marked a turning point. "What now, Poirot?" I asked. "The theatre will recover, won't it?" Sir Reginald seemed determined to keep it going, despite everything. Poirot's gaze returned to the theatre, its windows dark. "Sir Reginald, he will rebuild, but the scars, they remain. The Ruby Theatre, it is a place of dreams, but also of shadows. Clara's death, Edith's crime, they remind us that even beauty hides darkness." I thought of the other players. Lily Harper stepping into Clara's role with uneasy ambition. Victor Langston, haunted by his past with both Clara and Lily. Evelyn Marsh, whose play had hinted at the truth. Lady Beatrice, her financial grip on the theatre loosened. Maurice Duval, freed from suspicion but burdened by debt. Each had been touched by the mystery, their lives altered by Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. "The ruby curtains," I said, glancing back. "They're like a symbol, aren't they? Hiding the truth until you pulled them back." Poirot nodded, his expression poignant. "Oui, Hastings. The curtain, it rises and falls, revealing what lies beneath. In life, as in the theatre, we must face the truth, however painful." We resumed our walk, the theatre fading into the mist behind us. Poirot's words lingered, a reminder of his philosophy, that order and method could unravel even the most tangled web. Yet, as we passed the quiet streets, I sensed a quiet melancholy in him, a hint of farewell. The Ruby Theatre had been a stage for justice, but also for reflection. And I wondered if Poirot, like the curtains, was preparing to close a chapter of his own. "Will you return to Whitehaven Mansions tonight?" I asked, hoping to lighten the mood. "A hot chocolate, perhaps, to celebrate?" Poirot's smile returned, warm and familiar. "A fine idea, mon ami. But first, a walk through London streets to clear the mind. The little grey cells, they rest, but never sleep." As we turned a corner, the Ruby Theatre vanished from view. Its ruby curtains a final memory of a case that had tested us both. The mist closed in, and I felt a deep gratitude for Poirot's friendship, his brilliance, and the adventure that had once again bound us together. The curtain had fallen, but the story of Hercule Poirot, I knew, would echo on.